Hello again, fight fans. I'm Michael Montero from Boxing Monthly. You're watching the Neutral Corner for the week of June 10th. Wow, so today was boring. Monday. I'm filming this Monday night. Nothing happened, nothing at all. Holy shit! There's a ton of news today, and there's more news coming this week. Let's get into some news and notes. So of course, the big news today is that the fight between Saul Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Triple G Golovkin will indeed take place at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And this was met with a collective groan and a sigh by 90% of the boxing fans. There are a lot of people, maybe 10, 20% who are happy about it, but most people were pretty upset. Even though we all kind of knew that this is what was gonna happen. Money always talks, right? But I saw, Golden Boy tweeted it out, the announcement, and I kind of expanded the tweet. And, you can look at all the responses underneath, and holy shit, you guys were giving Oscar the business on Twitter. Tom Loeffler tweeted about it too, and it was the same thing. You guys expanded, I expanded that tweet, it looked, and you guys were ripping Tom too. Look, Golden Boy is the promoter in control of this thing, so it falls more on them, but all parties involved share some of the blame for this thing going to Vegas. Yeah, they're going for the money. The money always wins. It always wins, okay? The site fees, the sponsorships, and it's not just that, it's future dates. These powerhouse promoters want to bring future big fights to Vegas. They want those site fees secured for the future. So these whales in Vegas, they don't just control the promoters for like one fight. You gotta think, man, they have control down the line because you wanna secure dates and venues a year ahead of time. Canelo fights twice a year now on the 2 Mexican holidays, right? Just like Mayweather did, just like plenty of other fighters did and do now. That's the new state of the business in the United States. I hate it, but that's the way it goes for people, for fighters who are fighting for the money mainly. And Canelo's become one of them. And Golovkin might turn into one of them now. So when you have it set up that way, these casinos have major pull and major power over these promoters because they could say, look, man, you don't bring this fight here? Well, I can't guarantee you next May. I can't guarantee you that Mexican Cinco de Mayo holiday next May. I know you want to bring Canelo back here, but guess what? I don't know. Someone else might get that date. But you go ahead and put this super fight here in September. I'll go ahead and lock down that date for you next May too. Boom, done. That and tens of millions of other dollars from the whales pumping in. Dallas never had a shot. Jerry Jones, owner of that AT&T stadium there in Arlington, Texas, never even put in a bid. That tells you he knew right away this thing was going to Vegas. So look, all things considered in boxing, and I did a rant video about this. I won't speak much longer on it. We're gonna be talking a lot about this fight for months, right? But in boxing, we never get everything we want. But a lot of times we don't get any damn thing we want. At least we're getting some of what we want here. We're getting a fight that we wanted, and we're getting it, it's not past its expiration date. This is not Mayweather Pacquiao. This isn't Lewis Tyson. This isn't a million other fights that I can mention that happened so late in the game that they didn't fucking matter really when they finally happened. So at least we're getting the damn fight. Now, let's talk about some other news. Terence Crawford of Julius Indongo is almost set for Nebraska. They're talking about August 19th. And there's a possibility that Dillian White may be making his American premiere on that card. So it's not set in stone, but it's almost done. I like that fight, man. I like that fight a lot. I don't have any information as far as pay-per-view or anything, but Top Rank is going to be announcing a streaming service very soon. Could happen by the end of this month. I think they'll be announcing that. And this fight may land on it. This fight may very well be the first big fight on that service here in the States. I don't know for sure. I don't know exactly how it's going to go. But I believe a Crawford and Indongo fight would be a top-rank controlled promotion. Eddie Hearn doesn't promote Julius Indongo, but he has options on him, as I've stated before. So he's involved in this thing. If that fight happens, look, of course I favor Terence Crawford, but I do think Indongo will give him a better challenge than his last couple opponents, and it completely unifies that division, which is something we don't often see in boxing. So I love that fight a lot. Sticking with Top Rank, as I said, they're going to announce something very soon. It's going to be a streaming service, close to kind of like what Box Nation does, and I think that it's the way of the future. And it goes a long way, in my opinion, of further proof, further showing that Top Rank is, all things considered, the best promoter in the sport. Now, I think what Eddie Hearn is doing over in Matchroom, as far as individual promoter, Eddie Hearn's the best in the sport right now. But Top Rank's infrastructure and the way they've built up prospects for generations, the way they've invested in several Olympians, the way they've built a new market over in Asia, the way they were the first American promoter to heavily invest in Latin America, the first. They were the first to really invest in Europe, even with some of these Eastern European fighters. They are invested globally in fighters from different, almost every continent, okay? They're in good shape. They're not going anywhere. And if they get this streaming service right, and they only charge you 10, 15 bucks a month, it's going to work. If they try to charge people 30, 40 bucks a month, it's going to crash and burn. So let's see what happens with that. Other fights, talking about Eddie Hearn, he believes that the Joshua Klitschko rematch is going to happen, and he thinks we'll have some news, some confirmation by Wednesday. Apparently, Klitschko is meeting with Burnett, I always screw up his name, in Germany Wednesday. That's his advisor over there for K2 Europe. And they will talk about it. It's probably going to be late November, early December. Several people have put in bids, okay? So a lot of different venues are being discussed. And it's not just in the UK, it's not even just Europe. It's in several different continents. I've heard rumors about Africa, China, United States. So there's a ton of people bidding for this fight. Ultimately, though, I think it will probably land back in the UK. Either way, I personally think that Klitschko will go for it a second time. And a lot of you are saying, man, this might not end well. I get you. It rarely ends well in boxing. And in the rematch, we could see Joshua annihilate Klitschko in 2 rounds and send him into retirement. It could look like Joe Smith versus Bernard Hopkins. We've seen that scenario play out so many times throughout boxing history. But it's Klitschko's career. It's his decision. He was within a hair of pulling out that fight, that first fight, right? And he hadn't fought for a year and a half. Now he'll be coming into the ring much, much fresher and in better shape. I don't know, guys. That fight might be more competitive than you think. If it happens, I think it's great for the global health of the sport. Another fight that is already confirmed is between Micah Garcia, Adrian Broner. That's going to take place either in Las Vegas or New York City in Barclays, or I shouldn't say New York City, in Brooklyn, in Barclays. Katie Taylor is probably going to fight on that card. Possibly Dillian Whyte will fight on that card. Dillian Whyte's he wants to make an American debut. It's either going to be on the Garcia-Broner card or the Crawford-Indongo card. But Dillian Whyte will be making an American debut this summer. Katie Taylor will more than likely be fighting on the Garcia-Broner fight. That's July 29th, and I think that's going to go to Barclays. I don't think Vegas is in play for that at all, especially now that they have the Canelo-Golovkin fight coming up. But stranger things have happened. Maybe we'll see. But this kind of card, I think, belongs at Barclays, and PBC's done a lot of business there, so I think that's where it lands. Another fight being rumored is between Badu Jack and Nathan Cleverly. I like that fight. I like that fight a lot. I favor Badu Jack, but let's remember it's his first fight at 175. Cleverly's a tough customer. No venue or anything set yet, but it's being rumored that if the Mayweather-McGregor card does come together this fall, that this fight between Jack and Cleverly, or Cleverly and Jack, I should say, will land on that undercard. So for diehard boxing fans, I like that. And think about it. Badu Jack is a Mayweather fighter. Cleverly brings in the UK market, which a portion of the UK market is already invested because of Conor McGregor. But that fight will end up being the fight of the card if it's put on, because the main event, of course, is a joke. So there's more announcements coming later this week after a few meetings. That's all I could talk about at the time I'm recording this. But guys, a lot of stuff is coming together. For whatever reason, this is the week things are coming together. Makes sense because it's a down week as far as action. But there was, of course, some fights last week I'll talk about real quick. We'll review that. And then there's a couple of fights going on that might interest you that I'll preview. So let's get into the review of last week's action. Last Saturday, June 3rd in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, there was a doubleheader. It was shown here on Showtime Boxing in the United States. And the co-feature, Eleider Alvarez, scores a majority decision over Jean Pascal. It was not a majority decision. Alvarez won at least 9 rounds. The most I could give Pascal was 3 rounds, and that was being generous. He stole those 3 rounds with late-minute flurries. Pascal basically did what he always does. Herky-jerky, feinting, standing around in quick little 10-second bursts. 9 out of 10 of those punches wouldn't even land. It's enough, though, to keep guys off of him because he's so awkward and weird with those bursts. So Pascal rarely, if ever, gets put down or stopped. Kovalev's the only guy that really put an ass whooping on him. Alvarez stayed on the outside and just jabbed the shit out of him. Not the most awe-inspiring performance from Alvarez, but it was pretty damn dominating in my opinion. And it was a fairly interesting fight. But I scored at 117-111, as did one of the judges. I think the other judge had it 116-112. But a Quebec-based judge, Richard de Carufel, scored this 114-114. He scored this fight a draw. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I believe if memory serves me correct, because I had a brief view of the scorecards, he scored, it was either 5 or 4 or 5 of the last 6 rounds for Pascal, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I tweeted about this guy multiple times. I haven't been able to find a picture of him, but I've tweeted his name several times. During the fight, or well, after the fight when I read the score, and even today. Guys, you want to have a voice as a fan? You want to hold judges accountable? Tweet about this guy. Those of you in Canada and Montreal who are disgusted with this score, tweet about it. This guy's name is Richard. Last name is D-E-C-A-R-U-F-E-L. De Carufel, I guess. Carufel. I can't say the French accent, but tweet that name out. Write to the promoter. Write to the officials involved. Hell, tweet Showtime Boxing, who put this card on. Let them know how you feel about that judge. Take the power in your own hands and blast this asshole. Because there's no way in hell a retarded mongoloid chimp with a blind eye could score this fight correctly. This guy's an idiot, okay? He needs to be held accountable. Here's what I find hilarious. Showtime Boxing did a poll on Twitter. Who do you feel won the fight between Alvarez and Pascal? 30% of the people that responded to that poll said Jean Pascal won the fight. Those 30%, not only are you fucking idiots because you're so biased, because Pascal has a diehard following in Montreal. So obviously that was his diehard following chiming in on that poll. Those of you who answered that question and said and lied because you know Pascal didn't win that fight, those 30% of you fucking idiots who said he won that fight, you enabled that judge, Richard de Carufel, to have a job. You're the enablers. So the next time this fucktard scores a fight that goes against your man, you can't be mad because you just secured that fucking idiot a future job by justifying it, by saying Pascal won that fight. 30% of you on the Showtime's Twitter poll said Pascal won that fight. And you know damn fucking well he didn't win that fight. All you guys did was enable fuckery like this to continue. So good job, biased idiots. Good job. Jean Pascal has now legitimately lost 4 of his last 5 fights. Yeah, technically he got that gift against Yunieski Gonzalez, but we all know he didn't win that fight. So on the books, he's lost 3 of his last 5, but he's really lost 4 of his last 5. Is there any reason for this guy to continue? But he's going to be back because you 30%. In the main event, Adonis Stevenson won a TKO2 over Andres Fonfara. Does anybody really give a flying fuck? Sorry to be so negative in this episode, guys, but can I just tell the truth? Does anybody give a flying fuck about this idiot? He doesn't care about you. Why should you care about him? I'm not going up to Montreal to cover one of his fights. I'm not even going to try to get credentialed to one of his fights. So guess what? I'm going to speak the truth about it. He's a fucking fraud. There are some of you defending this guy as the lineal champ because he beat a shot Chad Dawson that killed his career by draining himself to fight Andre Ward. So Dawson, who got knocked the fuck out in sparring for that Andre Ward fight and then was knocked out by Andre Ward, who doesn't knock anybody out. He couldn't knock out journeyman. Dawson comes back up to 75 and gets knocked out by Stevenson. Cool. Linear champ. How many years ago was that? What has he done since then? Why do you continue to defend this fucking guy? And let me be clear, I was a fan of Adonis Stevenson at that point. When HBO was putting him and Kovalev together, sometimes on the same card, sometimes around the same time, building them up to fight each other, I couldn't wait for that fight. I was 50-50 on it, and I was really excited. And I was a fan of Stevenson. He trained at Krunk. I'm from Detroit. I love Krunk fighters. I'm biased. I'll always kind of root for him inside, right? Fuck him. Fuck his Krunk trunks. He's a fucking disgrace to that gym. He's a disgrace to the legacy of Emmanuel Stewart, one of the best human beings to ever work in this fucking sport. That idiot, that fucking waste, continues to tarnish and shit on the legacy of Krunk by doing what he's doing. That felt good. So yeah, anyway, he scored a second round knockout over Fonfara. And look, I tweeted after that fight, how is that Virgil Hunter advice working for Fonfara? And a lot of people, I didn't expect so many people to retweet that. There was like over 100 retweets and likes of that tweet. I didn't expect it to get that much love. But apparently I struck a chord. And a lot of you are hitting me back like, it's not Virgil Hunter's fault that Fonfara lost. But guys, that's not what I was saying. All I'm saying is Fonfara appeared to have absolutely no game plan. And he appeared to not understand fundamentally that he was fighting a left-hander. Of course, you guys know you have to get your foot outside of a southpaws when you're fighting him. Fonfara never had fast feet. So I get that he was failing at that, fine. But he wasn't even trying to do it. I watched their feet for the whole first round. He didn't even move his feet to the left to attempt to get outside of Stevenson's lead foot. Didn't even try. In fact, several times he moved straight into Stevenson's left hand. Just almost headbutted Stevenson's left fist. Several times. In between the first and second round, Virgil Hunter said, don't throw a punch in the second round. Just get your wits back together. You're fighting a puncher. Your fighter can't move very well. He's slow to begin with and has zero head movement. You don't tell him to hold. You tell him to get his wits and not even go for broke or try to get his man off of him by throwing a punch. Mind you, Fonfara dropped Stevenson in the first fight. Stevenson has been buzzed before, doesn't have a granite chin. And he can gas, he can punch himself out. So you don't tell your fighter, hey man, you gotta put some heat on him and get him off of you. You gotta fucking hold and clinch and clamp both his arms down, and for the love of fuck, will you try to get outside of his lead foot for a change to get away from that left hand? It's not as if Stevenson was clipping him with right hooks and uppercuts. It was all straight left hands. That was it. So Virgil's advice sucked, and Fonfara looked regressed. I'm not saying Virgil Hunter was going to cure all of Fonfara's ills in one camp. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying Fonfara was going to turn into fucking Pernell Whitaker overnight. But all I was saying is Virgil Hunter's not a miracle worker. He's not a really, really great trainer. He's more of a motivational speaker, and he's milking one star pupil he has. Guys, you judge a fighter, or I'm sorry, a trainer, not by their one-star pupil, but by their body of work and how much they improve a fighter after that fighter comes to them. Was Manny Pacquiao the juggernaut he became before he got to Freddie Roach, or did Freddie Roach help build him into that? How many other fighters have guys like Freddie Roach, Garcia, Manny Robles, what he's doing now in Carson, California, countless others, even the Furies. You look at the craft, the boxing craft the Furies have, right? Some of these trainers are underrated. Look at the Reynosos. One of you guys on Twitter talked about this and made a great point. The Reynosos have improved Canelo Alvarez's boxing craft. Have we seen Virgil Hunter do that with any fighter? One of you guys mentioned Daniel Jacobs, who looked improved against Gennady Golovkin. I didn't think he looked improved. I always rated Jacobs that high. You people, not all, a lot of you people just underrated Daniel Jacobs and thought it was going to be a second-round knockout. Anybody that saw Jacobs as an amateur could tell you that he had boxing craft and ability. He just needed a challenge. He needed to put it all together. Was that Virgil Hunter's work that Jacobs won all 12 with Golovkin? No. That was Jacobs being the second best middleweight in the world and being a hell of a lot bigger than Golovkin. So all I'm saying, Virgil Hunter, good trainer, good, not great, overrated. That's all I was saying in that tweet. No need to jump down my throat. Let's agree to disagree. And let's preview what's coming up this week. Okay, as I said before, not a whole lot going on in the ring this week. This is more of a news week in the world of boxing. But Friday the 9th in Bergen, Norway, Cecilia Brækhus is defending her 5 welterweight titles once again against an Argentinian fighter who's only lost once so far in her pro career, Erika Anabella Farias. So if you're into that sort of thing, you're into the female fighting, you know, I checked, and this is another one. It's a championship fight. 5 world titles on the line, 2-minute rounds. Ladies, you gotta fix that. You gotta fix that if you wanna be taken seriously as real fighters. The 2-minute round shit doesn't work for me. Saturday, the 10th in Belfast, Northern Ireland, Lee Haskins going on the road to fight Ryan Burnett, and this is him defending his IBF bantamweight title. For Haskins, he's 34-3, 14 knockouts, 33 years old. He kind of won this fight out of the ring. He was set to face an American, was it Randy Caballero, I believe, who missed weight, and I think Haskins had the interim title, so they bumped him up to full titleist. So that's how he got this title. Has some defenses, but that's how he got the title originally. Burnett, undefeated prospect out of Northern Ireland, 16-0, 9 knockouts, 25 years old, youngster, good amateur career. For Haskins, he's been stopped 3 times in his career, right? Burnett is working with Adam Booth. I think this is set up, not in a conspiracy theory way, but I think it's set up for Burnett to win, and I expect him to get the W here. I think that Northern Ireland is going to have another titleist come Saturday night. I like Burnett to win, and he doesn't hit hard though, so I don't know if he gets the stoppage here. I think it'd make a big statement, a big splash if he could score a stoppage. But he is making a big leap in opposition here as far as his pro career. Not that Haskins has fought anybody really of note himself, but he's fought the better opponents as a pro, and of course he has a lot more fights. If Burnett could score a late stoppage in this fight, I think that'd be a real big statement. But I like him by decision, and I think that Northern Ireland grabs a title here. So that's it for this week, guys. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/Montero on boxing, and be a part of the team. I'll see you at the fights.